Do you want to learn about God's kingdom mission across the globe? Is your ultimate goal as a follower of Jesus to lead others to Him, but you aren't sure how to do that? Then I'm so glad you're joining us today. I'm your host, Allison Henry, and welcome to the Follow Me podcast. We hope to share what God is doing through missionaries and ministries throughout the world, and give discipleship and evangelism tips so you can follow Christ and His command to spread the gospel.
Today, we have Matt and Tricia Ball with us, and we're going to take a slightly different approach to talking about discipleship. They are here to talk with me about discipling children. Before we kind of dive into that, I do want to take a moment and say just that maybe you're not having kids yet, or you can't have kids, or you're struggling in that, or you're out of that phase, or your kids are grown up, or you don't want kids. I do want to just take a moment to say, whatever situation you're in, whether you're a parent or not, the truths about discipleship are still applicable to your life. So whatever your mindset, whatever situation you're in, kind of just keep that in the back of your mind. I know we'll be focusing more on parenting with them, but there's still a lot to glean from the wisdom that they have, because a lot of times we're still going to be called to be spiritual mothers and fathers, even if we aren't just mothers and fathers of our own children, or maybe even adoption or fostering, whatever phase you're in. This is still going to be applicable to you, or at least we hope so. So stick with us. And Matt, Tricia, I'm so excited to have you with me today. And I just want to give you a moment to introduce yourselves.
Okay, I'm Tricia.
I'm Matt.
We have gone to I have gone to Porterfield since I was 2 years old. I've lived in this area since I was born. We have 4 kids, and we met in college.
Yep, we met at Alderson Broaddus College, which is no longer there, but she's the first person I saw on campus, so.
Love at first sight.
It was.
It was, actually.
Yep, I won't forget it, so.
Well, I know here at the church, you both are just really respected and a very loved couple, and a lot of people look at you and they see your kids and they want wisdom from you. They want to ask questions. So I know I have been in that boat multiple times. So we just wanted to bring you on here and give more people the opportunity to hear from you about your take on discipleship, specifically with children, and how you guys kind of navigated that. So to start us off, put yourself back before you had kids. You know, you're getting in the mindset, whether you're talking about you're getting ready for that, or you're pregnant and that's all rolling through your mind. As you started those discussions, did you have any biases? What was your mindset going into parenting? Were you just going to wing it? What was your approach?
Well, first off, I do want to preface by saying that, my goodness, what you said is very nice,
Yes,
but
thank you.
We're very humbled. We are in no way experts. We just happen to have had a lot of kids. So we've learned so much from so many people. But goodness, before we had kids, we knew that we wanted to have a big family. Mm-hmm. And we were excited to start our family, but we knew that it would be soon. We were married for close to 2.5 years before we started our family. So just a lot of excitement there.
I knew when I met her that it was something that was definitely dear to her. And I grew up in a big family, so it come natural to me to want, a big family. Yeah. So it was a no-brainer for us that we wanted a big family, and we didn't want to wait very long to do it, so we could enjoy it.
Yeah. Did you guys have a plan to raise your kids in the church, or did you have any ideas of how you wanted to raise your kids, to know the Lord and that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
We both grew up in the church. So, I grew up in a small town church with, mostly family members. So it was a lot smaller than what we have here at Porterfield. But I grew up with that wasn't really an option. The way I grew up, it was, my grandparents were major, big members of the church. My parents, my grandparents, my aunts, my uncles, and all of my cousins. Everybody. That was what we did on Sundays, Wednesdays. Sang in the church choir. It was just what we did, and so that says a lot for just how, as I got older, no matter what I went through in life, I knew that that's something that I wanted for my family, and that's something that I'll let her speak to her on that. But it's really, I knew I wanted to raise my kids in that, and because that's what we believe.
We definitely have similar backgrounds because I was raised in the church. I have one brother, and it was never an option for us to go to church. It was just the norm. And so that was definitely something that was very important.
For people maybe that haven't been raised in the church, but they think that they want to go that avenue, or they want to use a biblical approach for raising their kids, how could you encourage them? You both were raised in a church background, but what if somebody wasn't raised in that? How would you encourage them to come? Especially you're the children's ministry director, so Tricia, here's a pitch for you.
We would love to have your kids. It doesn't matter. If you did not start out going to church as a child, any time is the perfect time. And just be encouraged in that. Don't worry about the fact that, oh my goodness, my children aren't going to know as much as the other kids. Because it's an even playing field, and we're all on the same team. And the volunteers here are just really good at discipling kids and just kind of figuring out where they are, meeting them where they are, and then helping them grow from there.
Yeah. So in any periods of waiting that you guys had, whether you're like, oh, we're not ready to start, or we are, but we're just not there yet, how did you kind of muddle through that? And what was going through your mind as you're preparing to start a family? And are you thinking, I want to raise them this way, they're going to obey me every time I ask something? How did you muddle through some of those questions in periods of waiting? Or maybe you're training them and they haven't grasped something yet. That would still be a period of waiting too, How are you giving those situations to God as parents?
I think we didn't overthink it. We knew that's what we wanted to do. I think as far as having kids, it was for me more of a sense of feeling I don't know if you wait until you're ready, if you'll ever have them. So, we were young, we were, just getting established, and we didn't even own a home yet when we first got pregnant. So, so it wasn't like we had set everything up in our lives and it was time. It just, when the Lord wanted us to have them, and it was His timing, and we trusted in it, and we followed His, trusted His will the whole way, and that's really if you wait and try to, okay, I can't do it until I have this job, or I can't do it until I have a bigger house. We raised 3 kids with one bathroom that was in 2 bedrooms until years. So that's not what makes a family. Isn't that? But go ahead. But
and there were some times of waiting, because after we had Ryan, our first son, we were just planning, we wanted to have at least 4 kids. And so we got pregnant again and we miscarried. So that was a shock and definitely a time of waiting, because it really threw us for a loop, to say the least.
Yeah.
So then we did get pregnant with Logan. We were so blessed. After Logan, we had another miscarriage and another period of waiting. And then we were blessed to get pregnant with Jordan. And then we had another miscarriage. So another time of waiting. And I was further along that time. And we knew that he was a little boy. Yeah. Just heartbreaking. Just very heartbreaking. But then we were blessed with our daughter, with Becca. So it's hard to understand, why all that happened. It was even hard for the doctors to explain that, but we just trust it's the Lord's will, and we'll hold him in heaven.
Yep, absolutely. And I think as ladies, like Matt clearly is like, we just trusted the Lord. We didn't have a plan, but as ladies, we want everything to go our way, when the way we think about it in our minds. But then, things like that happen, and you have to still trust and wrestle with that. And I know that Matt was surely there for you in those times, and was able to support you and hold you up. And I'm sure that people in the church were able to come alongside you too.
They sure were.
Yeah.
Just like a second family.
Absolutely. So then as you were having kids and lots of boys, okay, so I'm listening intently because I know I have the boys, but so as you were raising your kids, did you ever think of this child rearing or bringing up your kids as discipleship? Did you look at it that way?
It's interesting to put that, quote unquote discipleship, maybe not that word, but that's definitely where our mindset was. We're going to raise them in the church, and we want them to know Jesus. But to say that, we were discipling them, I guess I don't know if we use that word or not, but that was definitely what we wanted to do. Yeah.
What about you, Matt? Whenever you think of discipleship, where's your mind go?
Really, it doesn't go to child rearing. Yeah. It doesn't. So when we were going through some of these, questions that you were going to kind of throw at us a little bit, it made me think, like she said, I don't think that's ever a term we used for it, but it is definitely the tactic that we used to raise them, not tactic, but it was the method that we went about it, and I think that's just because of how we were both raised. So that we were raised in that manner. So that's how we did it. Not to say that that's not how you can't do this if you weren't raised that way, because that is definitely not the case. But for us, we had a head start. Yeah. Right. And we wanted to give our kids a head start so that their kids would have a head start, So that's what discipleship is building the next one up and the next man up, the next, next man, next woman. But that's not what we were thinking, in my opinion. It was, this is our
natural thing.
This is our what we want. This is what the Lord's given us and what we have asked for, and we've been blessed. So
yeah. Well, I think that.
And you want to do well with what he blesses you with.
Absolutely. And I think that part of the root of discipleship is learning. Like part of the root word is learning. And that's what's happening within the home. They are constantly learning from you. Whether that's while they're
bad.
Really, exactly, depending on what's being modeled, what's being spoken into them. And then, of course, everywhere else they're going, they're learning too. But being able to pour into your kids as parents is really important in that way. And when you think about Jesus and how he did discipleship, he was only with that small group for most of his time. Yes, he did lots of big teachings, but he spent really concentrated time with them. And that's what parents do with their kids. So that same idea applies. And a lot of parents, when they get into that phase of life, they're like, well, I can't volunteer in this anymore. I need to step back, but we need them to still see that what they are doing is discipleship because they're raising their kids to know the Lord. And that's important. So, okay. So I do think that a lot of parents rely primarily on the church to teach their kids about God, Jesus, the Bible, just that kind of content, whether it's through Sunday school or vacation Bible schools or other people. But what do you think a parent's role is in teaching their kids about God and the Bible?
At what stage?
Yeah.
That's
Tell me.
I think it's different in all the different stages. I mean, you're not going to reason with a toddler,
Right.
You know that as well as I do. So, but I'll go ahead. But
I think a big way that we teach them is just being role models and just showing them how we want them to behave.
how we treat each other, how we treat those around us, how we
Yeah.
react to situations.
Right.
Even before they're talking, they're noticing how the mood,
Yes.
how
The climate.
the sense of, I think they can feel read the room better than you realize, if you're tense and you're upset, the babies wants to be that way. And, if you're stressed, just having that peace when you're at home with them and when you're out, and they're literally throwing a fit and making a mess of everything and embarrassing you to death, still showing that love. And you still you can't let them do everything they want, but showing that basically how you react. If you're screaming at your kids, I see it and I hate seeing it, but people that just are yelling at their kids nonstop and, belittling them, even at a younger age, that it just carries on. It doesn't accomplish a lot, I think. It accomplishes a lot. It's just not the right thing. So.
Exactly. Totally agree. Tricia, what about you?
Yeah, when our kids were little, I would many times, I would point out, sometimes the behavior of other kids and say, what's a consequence that could happen here? Or I would point out the good behavior and say, look how good they're being. And, just kind of showing them examples of what behavior, should be. But the role modeling part was super important. And like he said, you can just the climate that you create in your home.
Yeah.
Because if I was stressed or exhausted or whatever, the kids could
Pick
they
up
knew
on
that.
We were always stressed and exhausted.
They're always tired. When does that end?
You just had to hide it well.
How you react.
Do you have any scriptures that kind of helped you along the way with any of that? Or
I do. Deuteronomy 6:5-7 says, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and mind and with all your soul and with all your strength, your entire being. These words which I am commanding you today shall be written on your heart and mind. You shall teach them diligently to your children, impressing God's precepts on their minds and penetrating their hearts with his truths, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house and when you walk on the road, when you lie down and when you get up."
Yeah, and I think that even that verse, it seems when it says teach them diligently that you have to be sitting down and instructing them and teaching them Bible verses. That's not the concept. You're not going to get a toddler to do that, but you can teach them about being gentle and kind and the principles that you want to display for them. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So depending on the age, that takes different shape. That's what you were saying at the beginning of this question. Yeah. Very good. I love that verse. So in case our listeners are parenting alone, right? That could be the case. So whether they're a single parent or maybe working a rotating shift, right? Or their spouse maybe isn't on the same page with them. What encouragement do you have for the parent that's kind of feels like they're doing things alone in the home in terms of raising their kids to follow Jesus and helping to teach them and coach along the way or model the right behavior?
I know something in our children's ministry here that we really try to do is just come alongside those parents who are doing that. They may be, coming by themselves for one reason or another, and just plugging in and being part of a church family that all those other people can pour into their kids. And there's just so many ways to do that. If it would be through Upward Sports or Bible schools or just any of our Sunday or Wednesday programming. It's a great way to feel like you're not alone and to know that you've got your brothers and sisters in Christ to help you. Yeah. And I think oftentimes if a child comes to church, gets excited about church, then that translates to the parents as well. And then they want to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And those groups that you're talking about, it just gives a really good sense of community, and we can ask questions. We can bounce the hard ideas or be like, I really need some prayer because my toddler was like screaming on the floor today, or my teenager was this and that. So being able to give maybe a little bit of time of community to the parent is also really important in that. Not only is the child getting some good time and fellowship here, but also the parent, which is important. And whether it's just talking or prayer, or maybe they just need that little bit of respite time to recover. I think that that's so important for what we can offer. And not just us, any good church that somebody's going to want to go to. That's such a resource for them raising their kids in the Lord, I think.
Shortly after we had Ryan, I joined a small group, and there were several other ladies in this group that also had kids my age, or some were a little older. And we just ended up doing life together. In fact, right after this, I'm going to a Bible study with some of them. But that was just priceless as I look back on that.
We talked about this, and I think that's one of the biggest influences in not only our faith, but how the environment we put our kids in through the small groups, like her women's group, and then it turned into my men's group. The husbands are all close, and it's. You said something, not to stop you on that, because that is absolutely. I want to expand on what you're talking about there, because I think that's a really big thing with how our kids turned out. I really do feel that way. But you said, sorry, I'm touching my mic. The doing it alone. That's where I not just in child raising, but I talk to people all the time, and out in my other realm of the fishing world, and they're like, well, why do I need? I'm a believer. I believe in God. I have a faith, but I don't need the church. We fellowship with one another, and if you're a parent here, and you've got, maybe you're a single parent, or you come here, the Lord's going to put the right people in your path if you're looking for it. And then once a lot of the discipleship that happens through this church does not happen in these walls. It happens at the soccer field. It happens at a campground. It happens around a coffee table when two moms are stressed out and they're talking, or two dads decide, hey, let's go golf and let's talk about what our kids are up to, or we'll go hunting, sitting in a deer stand or whatever. That's where you find that. And it may not be the first church you go to. You might have to go but you're never alone if you find the family of God in the church. That's what the church is going to do, in my opinion. it just builds you up. It supports you and helps you. Like she said, we had a village help raise our children. Not that we sent them off to other people all the time, but we surrounded them with people with like values, like faith, and people that at this time, really, we were kind of the younger. We were kind of joining up with some of the older, not older, but people that were had been in, maybe a few years above us in child, care or child raising. And we could see what they were doing. We were emulating that. And they were feeding us, whether they knew it or not. And I feel like, hopefully we're doing that to some people that are behind us. And that's what our faith is really here. That's what we're called to do daily, is to just continually build one another up. The next generation is, you grow in your faith as you get older. You grow in your ability to raise kids as you get older. A new parent isn't going to be able to handle a teenager. But by the time you get there, you've figured out how to deal with it, But this community, the community of the church, can build that up big time. And we found that. And that's something the Lord put in front of us. And to this day, we have a core group of really good family. My family doesn't live here, but I have a close family. But my family in Porterfield is like family because of this place. So.
Yeah, very well said. And I think that's another good point. You learned from people who were a little bit older than you. Yes. And others are starting to learn from you, and then those people will learn from others, or teach somebody else down the road. And so you see another pattern of discipleship, even though it's not outwardly being labeled as discipleship, but that's exactly what's happening. And you can disciple in different areas of life too. It might not always be parenting. It could be career or something else, or just personal relationship with the Lord.
You got a lot more eyes on your kids when they get older too, and that helps.
Don't stress me out, Matt.
You got a lot more people watching out for them.
Yeah. Well, but now even like your kids are at an age where they're discipling others. You look at Ryan and Jordan with what they're doing with the youth here. And I'm sure that's crazy for you guys to be able to see.
It's just a blessing.
Yeah. Well, and it's like for me, I'm able to walk up to Jordan and say, hold my child for a second while I go get the other one or something. Like, just to see how you guys have nurtured your kids and how they're able to serve now other people.
It's such a huge blessing. I can't even tell you. And Logan and his wife help with the youth group at their church. And
I don't want to start on that because we'll just sit here and brag on my kids all the time. Because I am so proud of our kids. I really am. That is my greatest accomplishment in this life, is how I feel like how our kids have turned out, and how strong Christian people they are, and seeing how they're bringing people into the church, into their and strong faith. And that's all by the grace of God, not by what we did, not by what anybody did. It's because us just putting our trust in Him. And that was, I'm not going to lie, we weren't all along in our raising our kids thinking, boy, our kids are one of them's going to be a youth minister or whatever, youth leaders, and people dragging kids from school to church. And I wanted that, but
you don't know.
You don't know if that's going to happen. Not everybody's going to be able to do that, but the Lord has blessed us there, and that is not because of what we did. It's what this community of Porterfield and my family and her family, that's something that, having a big base of, family at home, family at church, all that is,
And sometimes I feel the prayers of even their grandparents probably upon their life, Yeah.
Well, I think that a lot of people will look at your kids too and they're like, oh, they turned out so good. But it's also not without
They're not great at all.
hard things. You know?
Yes, everybody has their struggles
yeah.
and their ups and
Different stages of difficult that you had to work through. But you guys know the ins and outs of that, not the onlookers, you know, like only you guys know what you've been through and probably your circles and how you've had to work through all of that. But I think that kind of segues into what part 2 is going to be for us. So next time, part 2, we're going to talk about a little bit more specific challenges, maybe with ages. But this was a good background and a perfect lead up to that. So thank you guys for coming today, and we are excited for next time.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, listeners, for joining us. If you have enjoyed our show and want to hear more, please subscribe wherever you're listening. We long for people of all nations to be reached with the gospel, because John 3:17 says, God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but in order that the world might be saved through him. And we are called to help in that process. We are in the ministry of reconciliation. If God lays it upon your heart, please share our podcast so that people can be inspired and equipped to make disciples and follow Christ as he commands. Until next time, we pray God empowers you as you seek to follow him.